In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the exact prompts that I use to make anywhere from 300 to 1,000 ads every single month for both my agency Studio Flow and for our clients using AI. Now, specifically, I'm going to be showing you the exact prompts that we use to personally generate, as I said, ourselves and our clients anywhere from 300 to 1,000 ad creatives every single month. Now, to really reiterate here, these are not theoretical prompts that might work that we have scoured from the internet. These are actual prompts that we use verbatim, tried and tested thousands and thousands of client times. And yes, we have clients that are spending over $500,000 every single month on ads and use these exact prompts to guide their entire creative system. Now, the issue with companies that use AI is that most of them prompt and it's way too generic. And therefore, as a result, as they say, garbage in, garbage out, the outputs are just as generic. What they do is they go ahead and they open up something like Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT, and they type in something like, write me just 10 Facebook ad headlines, because they, for some reason, assume automatically that whichever LLM that they are using automatically ingests and knows every single piece of context about their business, their audience, their pain points, desires, and even their customer language. Then, of course, yes, what you get is extremely generic. Maybe 1 out of the 10 headlines that it provides you with is somewhat usable, of course, with a degree of extent in terms of editing, but at least somewhat usable. You then end up having to spend maybe 20, 30 minutes, sometimes even more, editing that headline that maybe is to some extent, as I said, usable, and even more with some of the others, but it's still not quite right. It's not quite perfect. You wouldn't feel comfortable launching it. And of course, overall, it just completely defeats the whole point of using AI in the first place, which is to produce something better than you can in a much quicker period of time. Now, obviously, if it's not usable and you're having to waste your time editing it, you're going to be taking longer to produce something that isn't usable than it would have taken you to do something yourself that would have been usable. But the reason why this happens, and of course, the reason why it ends up becoming so counterproductive, is because the correct structure is not being used. And this is a really, really important part to understand about AI and how it actually is used. So in a bit more detail, this video will cover the main framework that you need to use and you can apply to any different prompt that you use, that we use to consistently generate 70 to 80% usable outputs every single time on first try. So yeah, let's get into the video. So specifically, the topics that I'm going to be covering are, first of all, why most prompts fail, so you can understand the reasoning behind as we go to reverse engineering them, what makes them work. A 5-element framework that you can use to generate winning outputs, how to piece everything together, the system behind this prompt, and why this matters for you and your business going forward. So first of all, why do most prompts fail? Now, interestingly, Forbes recently published a report stating that 95% of businesses that try to implement AI, even as a pilot, fail to see any actual results. So nearly every single business, the first time they try to use AI, they don't see any benefit whatsoever. But to make an important and clear distinction, this has nothing to do with AI in itself. It's not because the tech doesn't work, and it's not even because AI isn't as developed. So what I'm about to outline literally applies to even the first instances where ChatGPT released to the public back in November 2023. The reason why this happens is because they jump into AI without any proper training. Now, one of the most common symptoms that they then see is outputs that are very, very generic and also outputs that are off-brand. Content that consistently just cannot be used and isn't even worth the time editing. So then as a result, like I alluded to previously, this just becomes completely counterproductive. You end up having to spend more time editing the AI output in order to just get the benefit of using AI in the first place, and it slows you down rather than actually speeding up your workflow. Now, I'm sure you've seen this meme, or at least a variation of it. Okay, Claude, make me a business that makes $1 billion. Don't make any mistakes. Now, of course, it is funny, but it's even more so because it is surprisingly accurate. And if you're watching this thinking that this is nothing more than a meme, then I'm here to say for absolute certainty, because I've seen this so many times, this genuinely is, to a lot of companies, not a meme. They would not understand it because this is exactly how they operate with AI. This is how most organizations work. So yes, as I said, they go into Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, wherever it may be, and they write something as generic as write 10 Facebook ad headlines for my product, like I said, and they end up with, unlock your potential with XYZ product, skyrocket your business growth, transform your life with XYZ product. All of these extremely generic, vague, cliche terms that you hear so many times. And obviously it's the sort of terminology that every time you see a company use it or someone post it on LinkedIn, you can just tell straight away it's AI. And when you receive an output like that, it's so bad, it's not even worth going back and editing. And as I said, it's counterproductive. You see it, you sigh, you close the tab, you give up, and you ultimately, for a lot of businesses, determine that AI is just not quite ready yet. So why does this actually happen? Now, at its core, to give you a bit more understanding about AI without getting too in detail when it comes to the actual technicalities behind it, AI is not a browser. And I want to make that very, very clear. It does not work in the same way that Google does. It is what we call a pattern recognition engine. So what this means is that it specializes in recognizing patterns, and it then predicts based on those patterns what is going to be the next most likely pattern. And that pattern then ultimately becomes your output. That is all it does. So the output is ultimately as good as the pattern it recognizes. And if you don't give it specific patterns to recognize, it will then default to the most common patterns that it has access to, that is seen ultimately across millions and millions of inputs and data sources, which is why it becomes so generic. And of course, the more narrow you can make that input, the narrower the selection of patterns it will go to reference and obviously base the output upon, which means it's more likely to be accurate based on the narrow specific context that you have provided with it. Also, some important kind of like frameworks here to look at, and in terms of how to actually understand AI, AI is not like a software. In fact, I wouldn't even consider it a type of software whatsoever. If you take another piece of software, if you take a CRM or project management, whether it's a brand new software system or something that is completely new to the market, or even just another variation, something like Asana or Monday.com or ClickUp, this is very, very simple, where the input is directly correlating to the output. X equals Y. If you click on one specific button, you will get a specific output. If you click on a specific cell within a table, that cell will be highlighted every single time for the same person, regardless of how they use it. The output will stay the same regardless of who clicks on it, and to some extent, even how they click on it as well. AI, on the other hand, is completely different. It is not like that whatsoever. It is variable, which means the quality of the output is entirely dependent on the person using it. The better the input, the better the output. And that is exactly why it is such a variable, really piece of software, but not piece of software, but also at the same time so different to what would be considered a typical piece of software, as I said, like a CRM or project management tool. So therefore, when it comes to AI and getting better outputs with AI, the solution is not finding a better tool. It's not like a software system, like a CRM or one of these project management systems where you've tried Asana or ClickUp and you then go and try Monday.com because you think it might be better. It's not about that. It's not about trying Claude and then Gemini and ChatGPT. It's simply about changing how you use it, and in this case, how you specifically prompt it. So that's exactly what I'm going to talk you through, and this is a 5-element prompt framework that we use. This is the exact framework that we use ourselves when we're prompting, when I'm prompting personally, and that we teach our clients that pay us to learn how to use AI. This is applicable whether you are writing copy, whether you are generating video scripts, whether you are creating static ads, whether you are looking to use ChatGPT as a personal assistant or therapy session, whatever it may be. This framework will dramatically increase the quality of the output that AI gives you, regardless of what the topic is. So what are the 5 elements? We have the role, we have the task, the context, format, and constraints. The role is essentially outlining what and who the AI is and what role they are undertaking as a part of this prompting process. The task is what you are asking AI to do. The context is what prior knowledge it needs in order to execute on the task effectively. The format is what you would like it to look like in terms of how you would like AI's output to really just be styled. And then finally, the most important one is constraints. What should it not do? In other words, this is often referred to as negative prompting. So to break down each one, first of all, we have the role. Really simply, you just need to tell AI which role you would like it to adopt. You are an XYZ. Tell it who you want it to act as during the process of generating your output. Now, you may have seen people on Twitter that share these prompts, and yes, they are effective for this reason because you can tell AI who to be. But the reason why is because when you do this, it assumes the identity of that specific person. And as long as it assumes that identity, it changes the patterns in which it pulls data from, which is why this is so important. It will match the patterns it searches from in order to identify and generate that output with the persona that you provide it with. So then second of all, we have the task. So it goes without saying, but you have to be extremely specific about what you would like the AI to do. Typically, yes, this will include exact numbers, relevant platforms, what you are trying to achieve, and with levels of nuance. So if you're writing ad scripts, any specific angles, levels of awareness, whether it's top, middle, or bottom of funnel, length constraint, and structure constraints. So in other words, just tell it what you would like it to do in as much detail as possible. Then we have context, the highest leverage aspect, but also the most ignored. The more information you give AI, the better the output will be every single time. But having said that, this does come with a caveat. Not always does more information equal a better output. I cannot stress enough, this has to be relevant information. You have to give more of the right information, not just bombard it and overload it with too much information that isn't relevant. Because if you just share with AI loads and loads of information, some of which isn't actually relevant to the task at hand, you will dilute the patterns in which it searches, therefore making the output less specific to this specific task. This can include, but isn't limited to, brand voice guidelines, target audience personas, documents, product details, images of ads that have worked well, and of course explaining why. At the same time, you can share images of ads that haven't and explain why they didn't work well, transcripts from calls with customers, clients, whoever it may be, YouTube video transcripts, customer reviews, whatever it may be, the more context, the better. Then penultimately, we have the format. This really is just a case of personal preferences. You're telling AI exactly what the format should look like. It does save considerable time and frustration down the line when ultimately, when you don't do this, AI gives you the output, which is not what you would like it to be. It just ensures that the output is in a usable format. It saves you time so you don't have to go and repurpose it yourself. And you can go ahead and just move on to the next step of your manual workflow without having to waste too much time re-editing things. So it could just be a case of bullet points or long paragraphs or sentences, whatever it may be, just tell the AI how you would like the output to look. And then finally, we have constraints. As I said, this is the most important aspect of this, and it's also by far the most underutilized. It's also, yes, as I said, known as negative prompting, but it's essentially where you tell AI what you would like it not to do, what it specifically must not do when it is generating your output. This will eliminate any patterns that typically occur within AI and give you the opportunity to essentially tell it what must not be involved in the process of creating the prompt and what must not come up within the output itself. So to give you an example of what this looks like and putting this all together, here is what a full prompt would look like using that framework. Now, one thing before I dive into the actual content of the prompt, one thing to really kind of like make clear, and something that a lot of people don't talk about, but the better the structure of the prompt, the better the output will be. Although it may seem like a waste of time when you are prompting, going through, making specific things like the role and the task and the different aspects of the prompt in caps with the brackets, and then making sure there are proper line breaks below each one, bullet points where necessary, the better you can structure it and the more clear you can make it, the easier it becomes for AI to actually understand it. So yes, even though it may seem like a waste of time, it is absolutely worth your while to go through when you are prompting, properly space everything with the correct line spacing, line breaks, and as I said, where necessary, bullet points, caps to make it as clear as possible. But for the actual prompt itself, first of all, we have the role. So you are a world-class direct response copywriter who has 30 years of experience building multiple billion-dollar advertising campaigns for DTC e-commerce brands from scratch. So of course, here in this example, I'm going to be using the theoretical, hypothetical example of a DTC ergonomic chair brand. In this role section, as I said, we are simply telling AI the role in which we would like it to assume for the purpose of producing this. We're telling it that in order to give us the output, it needs to assume it is a world-class direct response copywriter who has 30 years of experience building these multiple billion-dollar advertising campaigns. This means that when AI goes into the process of looking for those patterns to recognize and start building your output, it will narrow the search to those that are most relevant to this specific role, which means the likelihood of the output being more aligned with something that a world-class direct response copywriter who has 30 years, blah, 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 actually would, is significantly higher. Then we have the task. So write me 10 direct response Facebook ad headlines for a new ergonomic office chair campaign. Very simple. That is what we would like it to do. The angle we're testing is premium quality without the Herman Miller price tag. So there we are identifying and telling the AI what the angle is going to be for the headlines that we are asking it to write. Then each headline should be 5 to 8 words and specifically benefit-led. Either use a skepticism-based hook or a comparison framework. So just adding a bit more context there, we have now given it the task, we've told it what we would like it to do based around what angle and how we would like it to actually go ahead and do it in terms of the type of headline too. So then we have the context. Now, obviously, just to give you a bit of context on this section too, in most cases, you would be providing actual context here, whether it's with ChatGPT in terms of just uploading files, you would be uploading these documents, whether it's with Claude, where within the project, you would be uploading these documents as I outlined previously, examples of what they may be. But just to show you what this would look like as if we were prompting it, brand voice, confident, straightforward with a slight edge. We don't take shots directly at competitors, but we allude to superiority. Target audience is remote workers, office professionals that have experienced back pain from cheap chairs, young entrepreneurs investing in ergonomic chairs. Best performing previous headline, why pay $1,200 for a chair? This worked because it directly called out competitor pricing, but also included curiosity elements. Now, this is just to give you an example of what this should look like. Below this, you could also go ahead and add in a sentence which could say, I've also attached to the project knowledge or to this prompt XYZ documents, explain and list what those documents are, ensure it references them, and then obviously explain the why behind. You know, if you've included ads, just like this sentence here, explain why the ad worked, and so forth and so forth. Then we have the format. As I explained, please provide the 10 headlines as a numbered list. Next to each headline, I also want a short explanation of the psychological effect being used, but just one sentence. Advice on where in the funnel this would be best used. Specific trigger moments in people's life in which this would resonate with. So we are telling it exactly what we would like the output to be. So therefore, we can ensure that there's going to be no frustration down the line, and it makes our life easier, and we can interpret what AI is saying, which also means the speed in which we can provide feedback and iterate on this is going to be quicker and overall speeds up the entire workflow. So then finally, we have the constraints. When writing the prompt, do not use any generic AI cliches. Do not include structures like, that's not X, that's Y, as I'm sure you've seen one of the most recognizable patterns that something has been written by AI. Do not make any exaggerated claims that aren't accurate and aligned with the exact words of my customers. Do not use M dashes. Obviously, that last one there is just for something that would be completely up to you. Whether you use M dashes or not really is optional and doesn't matter too much. But just to kind of show and make the point of what you can and can't include within this section. Just anything that you would like it not to do. Sometimes you have to be strict with this because a lot of the time you will provide an input prompt into ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, wherever, and it will spit you out a response and an output, and you'll read through it and you think, where on earth has this got this from? It will provide you with some data or a statistic or some numbers that seem surprising at first, but then upon investigation, you realize it's just made them up and pulled them out of thin air. So sometimes you want to make sure it's not doing that and provide it with that constraint that it ensures it doesn't make any exaggerated claims or claims that aren't accurate. Now, as I said, just to reiterate here, as you can see, this prompt has been very well structured. If you were to paste this prompt into any of the LLMs without this structure, and it was just one big long block of text, one huge paragraph, the output would be inferior to the way this has been structured because it is clearer and it is easier for the AI to understand the instructions. And of course, the clearer it understands the instructions, the better the output is going to be. So in terms of the system, just looking slightly beyond this, because of course, for some of you watching this, you might be, thinking we already know this, we have a similar framework, this already works, we already have the benefit of this. So how can we really take it to the next level? There are 3 things that you can add into your workflow that will systemize your creative production on the back of having mastered this prompt framework. These 3 core main things are what I'd consider separate companies from those who just use AI to make a few ads, or we know a bit about prompting, to companies that actually have fully built systems that work automatically and produce them hundreds, sometimes thousands of ads every single month. Those 3 are context profiles, prompt libraries, and iterative refinement. And yes, I promise you, these are not as complicated as they sound. They really just sound a lot more technical than they need to. So let me explain what they mean. First of all, we have context profiles. These essentially just facilitate the ability to remember context. In other words, these really is just, another word for saying AI having memory. But it also means and has the benefit that you don't have to rewrite context and provide context every time you open up a new chat or a new prompt with AI. We build permanent context profiles ourselves, and we train our clients on how to do this. And these context profiles include brand voice guidelines, customer language, competitor analysis, previous winning ads, all of the things that I previously outlined in the context section. But these things live in projects or reference documents so that every time you start a new chat with AI, you no longer have to keep repeating the same piece of context over and over again. It automatically refers to it because it has remembered that context. Then we have prompt libraries. Now, these are very simply just documents or pages, which you can make anywhere, for example, Notion, Airtable, Google Docs, any software of preference. These contain the best performing prompts that work really, really well. Now, we have a prompt library of over 300 prompts that we have used that work extremely well for different use cases, which also, side note, is available to all of the clients that work with us to train their teams on AI systems and everything that I am outlining. And what this basically means is that you systematize the process, and you can just refer back to this every single time you have a specific use case. So when you're using AI and you prompt something and the output is very, very effective, or, another kind of like iterative trick here as I outline, if you go through and you prompt something and you have to iterate a couple of times before you get to the output you are looking for, and then you ask AI what prompt would have been needed in order to get to that output the first time, you go ahead and you save that prompt to your prompt library. If, for example, that prompt was on generating a UGC video script for your specific product, the next time you want to go ahead and generate a script, you can just refer back to this prompt library and you can copy that prompt and paste it into the AI to save you a lot of time, because you know that the last time you used it, it worked extremely well. So then, yes, third and finally, we have iterative refinement. Now, this is basically just adopting the mindset that the first output is never the final, or at least rarely and really it shouldn't be. The process should be as follows. So run the prompt into AI, evaluate the output, give your specific feedback to the LLM on the output, and then ask it to refine it based on that feedback. Now, like I said, you should be going through this process a couple of times. It is an iterative process overall. But then when you have an output you are happy with, when the AI is finally given you something that you feel is ready to use, you can then go back to AI and you can literally say, what prompt would I have needed to have given you in order for you to have produced this output upon first time of asking? That then will be the prompt that you save to your prompt library. And of course, as you do this going forward, the more iterative this process becomes, you are training the AI to understand the quality standards that you have, and it trains itself on those standards and becomes better and better over time. So why does this matter? When you're spending 25 to 50K a month on ads, maybe a little bit less, you can most likely get away with just manual prompting, and maybe just that 5-step framework that I outlined would be really beneficial. But as you start scaling further beyond this, 100K a month, 200, 500, multiple millions of dollars per month in ad spend, you need more ads. Now, if you're unaware, Meta recently released a new algorithm update to their AI platform for advertising, which was called Andromeda. And essentially, with Andromeda, what this basically means is you need more creative diversity. Gone are the days where you could launch an ad and then 5 variations of that ad with a slightly different hook, or if it's a static, a different color with the same messaging. You can now longer not get away with doing this, because Meta and this specific algorithm now rewards diversity and unique ads, which means fundamentally different hooks, different angles, different styles, different formats. And of course, the volume has increased as well, because the way in which AI can adapt to this means that the amount you need to be testing is significantly higher. They specifically are recommending a minimum of 300 ads every single month, not to even be successful per se, but just to maintain the baseline level of performance. And yes, as I said, that's 300 completely unique, different variations, not exact same ads with different variations of them, but completely unique variations, as it were. Now, of course, at that scale, it's very, very hard to do this manually. You cannot manually prompt everything. You cannot manually make these ads. You need context so that every single prompt that you produce is on brand, so it saves you the time to manually re-enter that prompt every single time. You need these prompt libraries so that your performance team or your designers or copywriters aren't having to go back and reinvent the wheel every single time they need a prompt. You need specific quality processes so that your outputs are consistently on brand and aligned with your brand standards, so you can speed up launch times, not having to keep going back and iterating over and over again, delaying the process to actually go and implement the output in which you prompted for in the first place. And also, you need team training so that every single person within your organization, whether it's a UGC editor, a static ad designer, a copywriter, a media buyer, your head of growth, CMO, whoever it may be, can execute at the exact same level and raise the overall standards of the direction in which your team is going in. Now, this level of efficiency is extremely hard to just kind of achieve if you are just kind of like dabbling with AI. Maybe you've tried it out a couple of times. You need to be building an effective creative system with AI so that you can execute a higher level of creative volume. Because the reason why this is so important is simply the more ads you are launching, it increases the mathematical certainty of your campaigns being profitable. So think of it this way. AI simply means more volume, which of course is favored extremely highly now with Andromeda, as I mentioned, but from an even more simple mental model, as it were. More volume means more angles you can test. More angles tested means the likelihood of finding a winner is much higher. The more winners you find, of course, the more revenue and profit you generate. And the more you generate, the more you can pour back into your ads to scale and test even more. And that kind of becomes a compounding loop that gets better and better with time. So in terms of next steps, if you would like help implementing this, everything I've mentioned, the prompt framework, those 3 core systems that I outlined, and really just build a repeatable system for your team that produces anywhere from 300 to 1,000 professional, unique ads every single month without any further ongoing costs, any more team burnout, or any additional burden to your headcount. This is exactly what we train you on in our 90-day AI creative training program. This is not a course. This is not a passive info product, as it were. We work directly with you and your team one-on-one. We have multiple live calls per week. It could just be with yourself individually. It could just be with your entire team. It could be your 25-person organization and your marketing team. Whatever it may be, we will get on multiple live calls with you every single week where we will train you on everything mentioned above, and we will even make your first ads for you so that you can launch them directly into your campaigns during the process and not have to wait until the end of the 90 days to launch something and see results. So yeah, here is exactly what is included. 12 weeks of live one-to-one coaching. We teach you everything that you need to produce hundreds and hundreds of high-quality ads. Full guide through building your own scalable system that consistently generates on-brand creatives. As I said, live calls where we actually produce campaigns, ads for your campaigns, so then you can launch them immediately. And as I said, not have to wait till the end of the 90-day process to do so. Everything that you need to roll out these systems across your entire organization so that your whole team can operate independently with the skills and knowledge that they have accumulated. Slack channel with our team for full support, immediate troubleshooting, guidance if you run into any issues using these tools with the prompts or just want our feedback. That is what we are there for. As new AI creative tools emerge, which of course they do at a very, very rapid speed, we integrate these into your training and show you how to implement them. But of course, ensuring that those are only going to be relevant to your workflow, not just a case of shiny object syndrome and training you on every single tool that comes out, because this is ineffective and most of these actually aren't relevant. Also, as I alluded to, you will get access to our internal winning ad library, tested prompt templates of which we have over 300, and every single framework that we cover throughout the program. So just to make a quick disclaimer here, this is specifically for ad accounts, companies, teams, businesses spending a minimum of $25,000 per month actively running ads. If that is you, there is a link below in the description, so you can click on that. You'll be redirected to our website where you can watch a video presentation of me explaining everything involved in the training, what it includes, how it's structured, what expected results you can expect to see after the 90 days, and of course, what pricing looks like and some frequently asked questions. And below that video, you will be able to click a button and schedule a call with our team to learn more about how this can help you specifically. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next.